Okay, your question's not so good. His question's tremendous. Okay, so one of the questions people ask all the time is, okay, I had a bypass. How much of that is that? What's the deal? How much? How did you figure that out? What does it mean and everything? And the beginning answer is, I don't know. There are some problems with bypassing the gut. And so I'd like to give you a little bit of background on the gut. A minute ago we were talking about the upper part of the MGB in the stomach, and now we're going to talk about the bowel, which is kind of the lower part. And so really good question again. Thank you very much. And I owe you another 20 for that good question. Okay, let's talk about the gut. What's the gut? The bowel is another part of the gastrointestinal tract, and it is anywhere, depending on how you look at the research and when you measure it, somewhere between 20 and 30 feet long. And in fact, they've done studies. If you cut the bowel open and splayed it out and looked at the surface area and laid it out right next to each other, you have the surface area of roughly a tennis court inside that bowel, if you flattened it all out. And it has to be long surface area so that it can pick up and digest all of your fat and calories, all of your vitamins and minerals. And God, again, in a miraculous way, has put this long garden hose inside of us, somewhere between 20 and 30 feet long, to allow us to digest and absorb vitamins, minerals, fat, and calories. And it works really well. And in some of our patients, it's working too well. It's taking its job a little too seriously. We want to go to the small bowel inside of our patients going, lighten up, easy. Back off a little bit from your job of bypassing, of digesting and absorbing so much. So the MGB is designed to look at the gut's purpose, to realize that 30 feet is critical, and to look at science that we know. So we know from other kinds of medical tragedies that if you have no small bowel, in other words, there are children born who have twisted intestine and they lose all their small bowel because it twists and dies. So these babies are born without their small bowel and they progressively lose weight and die unless you feed them intravenously. So you need your bowel. You need some bowel. And they also know from these babies that there's a certain amount you have to have. Usually it's at least 2 or 3 feet to live. So for example, if I took your surgery and bypassed from your mouth straight to your bottom, you ate a Snickers bar and it fell out, right? That would lead to progressive weight loss, starvation, and death because you need to digest and absorb some food. And if we know that your present situation where you have a full tennis court inside of you to digest and absorb and you're too heavy, and nothing means you'd be too thin and actually starve to death, what we want to do with your bypass is choose the perfect place so that you lose some, but not too much. And God, in His infinite wisdom, when He created you, did not put a marker on the intestine for me. And not that I want to be critical of His handiwork, but I could have used a little marker in there. Cut here for 20 pounds and cut here for 100 and cut here for 200, and we don't have that. So at the time of surgery, I looked at your intestine. I know that somewhere between 20 and 30 feet is what you have, and based on my experience from thousands of patients, I guessed that 7 feet would be a good choice for you. But there's even one more little kicker in this. When I say that the length of the bowel is such and such, it's kind of like asking, how long is a slinky? Because the gut itself changes length from moment to moment. It's a little bit like asking, where's the edge of the ocean? It's here, it's there. It's here, it's there, and then the tide comes in, it's here, it's there. So your gut, depending on food and release of adrenaline, can change in length moment to moment. So I tried to bypass 7 feet, but I really don't know how much was bypassed. The tide might have been out when I measured 7 feet, in which case you wouldn't have had enough of a bypass. The tide might be in, and I might bypass way too much. And so that's a danger of the surgery, and one that I don't know how to overcome. So what we do is we tend to be somewhat conservative, and we explain in our pre-op permit when we talk to you, we said, we might bypass too much. And if I do, I'm sorry. It would be a terrible complication, but it's easy to fix. And so at the time of surgery, using my background, my experience, I guessed that I was bypassing around 7 feet, and I guessed that that would be the best choice for you, keeping all other things in mind, with the understanding between you and I'm not certain of how much I bypassed, and I'm not certain what's best for you because there's no marker. Because 7 feet for you might be perfect, 7 feet for somebody else might not. Does that kind of answer that?
Yes. On slightly related